Hello again. Talking about business turnaround once more. Today, I'd like to talk about some of the golden rules that I feel you need to apply when carrying out a turnaround assignment, whether you are an advisor, a turnaround director, or indeed you're looking to do a turnaround of your own business. People often say to me, well, there's a process in business turnaround, isn't there? Like everything else. Well, not really, because every situation is different, because the people are different, the culture is different, the markets are different. So you've got to sometimes think more creatively in these situations. Anyway, here we go with a brief presentation and some golden rules when carrying out a business turnaround assignment. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. Let's go through some golden rules that I've used in the past, which I think are relevant. First thing I think is it's important to keep a diary or a log and record everything that you do. It doesn't have to be in detail, but I think dates, who you've met with, what you've discussed, and particularly what's been agreed. You're not going to write a novel, just take a note so you can refer back to it later. You may be challenged on it later. Maybe people say, why have you done this? Why have you done that? It's also important because if you're working in a company that's potentially facing insolvency, if things do go pear-shaped, at least you can look back and say, well, this is what the advisor gave, this is when I gave it, and so forth. You have that evidence. That is particularly important. It's important also that you record what you've advised directors to do as well, that you have reference to that, as you may be questioned about it. It's also important, in my view, to consider all the options when you're looking for a solution to a problem. Looking at all the pros and cons, the what ifs, the options, even if sometimes you might think, well, that particular option would not work. It is worth going through the exercise of, from do nothing to do everything. Look at everything, write it down, and discuss it, and agree which of those might work and which of those you give priority to. The problem sometimes with the turnaround is the pressure of time. And it's important that as a turnaround director, you have your own time for thinking. That means sometimes getting outside of the box. And to me, getting outside of the box is getting outside of the organization, outside of the environment sometimes, and give yourself space and time to think about the business and its issues. Turnaround is not done by one person. We heard about Sir John Ivy Jones, who had the TV program turning businesses around, but that's just good television. The reality is that to be successful to turn around, you do need a team. And my own experience is that wherever possible, it is best to use directors. They have the knowledge of the business, the environment, they know the market, etc. They may not all be up for it. But many of them are up for it and are quite willing and quite interested and sometimes excited to get involved in a project like this. They've also got to live with the decisions that are being made, so you've got to get that buy-in and agreement from them and what you're doing. Otherwise, when you walk away, they'll just go back to where they were before. It is important that you ensure the directors are taking formal insolvency advice, particularly if the company's in a situation where it's not paying its creditors as they're fall due, or has an insolvent balance sheet, or both, or indeed if there is any risk at all of the company becoming insolvent. It's important for them, but it's also important for you because in actual fact you will be acting as a shadow director. If you're turning around a company, you cannot turn around a business hands off as an advisor. It doesn't work. You can advise, but you're not actually going to turn the business around. You're advising other people how to do it, and even then, you're at risk of being a shadow director. So it is important that you do take that insolvency advice for the directors and for yourself. Be prepared to challenge the forecasts and predictions made by directors. They may be based on historical records, that they've just projected forward. They've not really thought about the marketplace. They've perhaps not done the research. And they can be very protective about what they've done in the past in terms of forecasts. It is worth looking at the forecasts and look at the performance in the past where, have they actually achieved previous forecasts and budgets? If not, why not? I think it's always best to start with the greenfield situation and think about where we want to be in the future and how we're going to get there, rather than just taking at face value forecasts that have been done previously. I would tend to throw them out the window and start again. That would be my approach. And I think sometimes, being a turnaround director can be a lonely job, a lonely role to be in. So don't be afraid or hesitant in terms of asking advice from other people, professional colleagues, or people that you know. It is a lonely life. There's no white knights in this game. The spotlight is on you, but you can't do it on your own. So work with other people and don't be frightened of asking advice. Indeed, asking advice from directors about will this work? How do they feel about this situation? If you're proposing to carry out a particular change or a move in the strategic direction of the business, talk to as many people as you can. That is important to me. I think it's important to empathise with the directors. Sometimes we can, when I was at KPMG, there was very much this approach of we're the experts, we know everything. That's not true. The directors have got a lot to offer as their business at the end of the day. And I think it's important as a turnaround director, you empathise with them, respect them, and become involved as part of the team. You're likely to be leading the team, but nevertheless, you are still a part of that team. Important to understand the personal dimensions of the team as well, the stresses and strains they may be under, because if the company is failing, there can be a lot of pressure, personal pressure on directors. And I think you need to be cognizant of that and understand it and respond to it. You're going to be part of the team, but I think it's important that you stand up to your own recommendations and able to justify them. You're more than just a facilitator. Rather, you're more of a facilitator than an expert. So you're using, the team to get the best out of them and to lead them, not to come in and say this is what you must do. Sometimes you may have to do that. If you can't get agreement, sometimes you have to be assertive and say, well, this is what we are going to do. Be creative. Try to think of different ways to do things. As I've said before, it's not a process, but it does need structure. It needs fresh ideas. It needs, to get ideas from whoever within the team. And quite often I find that walking around a factory or around the warehouse or around the offices, talking to people, getting ideas from them, what they think, that can be helpful as well. So all the ideas don't have to come from yourself. They come from other people. But try to think differently. Put away the way things were done before, put them to one side and say, how can we achieve our objectives in a different way? It's important to be bold, sometimes aggressive. So we might have to be radical. And I've done that in the past where I've made radical change. There's no point in pussyfooting around and changing things on the fringe. That doesn't work. You've got to make significant change. That can be incremental, it can be continuous, but sometimes it is more dramatic and it's more radical change. It's what I call step change. Our competitors may be going one way, and we're going that way. And I think we need to make that step change to get to the same point as our competitors or to best practice. And that means radical change. And that means you, as the turnaround director, being quite bold and sometimes aggressive in the approach. I mean, aggressive in a nice way, not so aggressive in the attitude, the way you deal with people. Look at the things that have been done in the past. Quite often people say to me, oh, we've tried that, it didn't work. Well, that's okay. Perhaps it didn't work, but perhaps it didn't work for a variety of reasons. So it's finding out what has been done in the past. And don't think of the obvious. Allow your mind to be less constrained. And sometimes you may generate ideas which seem a little crazy, a bit off the wall. It doesn't really matter. I think the important thing is to generate ideas about change and throw those out. Some of them will stick, some of them might work. And encourage other people in your team to do the same thing, throw out fresh ideas and consider them all. Because sometimes some of the craziest ideas turn out to be the best. It's also important, I think, to keep a positive demeanour without being complacent or optimistic when optimism is not appropriate. You're the one that's going to be finding the solutions at the end of the day, or directing the team to find solutions. And I believe every problem has a solution. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a problem. The problem is not finding the solution. The problem is understanding what has caused that particular issue and getting to the root cause of it and understanding that. And then once you've done the root cause analysis, you can determine the right solution. But sometimes that may not be the one that the management wants, and you've got to accept that and push that through and persuade them that this has got to be the way that it is. And that's why we need to be sometimes a bit more aggressive and assertive, and sometimes quite directional. So they're the main things for me. Just last note, if you want further information, please contact me by email, that's fine. Or you can read my book, because it's got more about this in there, and also it goes through a turnaround situation and the 5 steps involved in turning around a business. A fantastic read, but I would say that, of course. Well, thanks for listening and watching, and I'll speak to you again. Thank you. Bye.